Ever feel like the whole world is on edge, like one wrong move and everything could shift?
Yeah, it's a feeling you get a lot following geopolitics these days.
Totally. And today's deep dive, well, it's about as high stakes as it gets. We're talking Taiwan, an island nation that's front and center in, well, pretty much everything.
Can't get much hotter than that. You've got a whole stack of stuff here, too. Articles, reports, even a podcast episode someone sent in, all about Taiwan's role in the world.
It's a lot to unpack, for sure. So for folks who might be tuning in without their geography hats on, let's start with the basics. What makes this island so strategically important? You always paint such a vivid picture, so set the scene for us.
Okay, imagine this. Think of a major city, right? Bustling, traffic everywhere, everyone trying to get somewhere. Now, picture Taiwan as this crucial intersection, but instead of cars, it's massive cargo ships.
So like the Suez Canal, but an entire island is the choke point.
Exactly. And our sources highlight these three maritime choke points in particular: the Taiwan Strait, the Mako Strait, and the Bashi Strait. Control over these equals major leverage, both economically and militarily.
I mean, one report our listener sent mentioned almost all the world's largest container ships pass through these straits. It's hard to wrap your head around how much global trade is flowing through a space you could practically see across on a clear day.
Right, and when you look at a map, it's even crazier.
I've got one pulled up right here.
See how close mainland China is?
Whoa, yeah, Taiwan's practically right in the middle of their coastline.
And they haven't forgotten that. One source quotes a former Chinese diplomat, Victor Gao, who said that if Taiwan were, say, under U.S. control, it would basically be like severing China's coastline, cutting off their access to the Pacific.
So, like, if your neighbor decided to build a fence across your driveway.
Precisely. And that's where the U.S. enters the picture. They've got a vested interest in keeping those shipping lanes open, not just for trade, but also to maintain their own influence in the region. It's all about what they call the First Island Chain.
First Island Chain. Sounds like a Cold War spy novel.
Kinda is. Imagine a line drawn from Japan down through Taiwan and then down to the Philippines. The U.S. sees these islands as their strategic line in the sand, crucial for projecting power into the Pacific, and from their perspective, containing China's influence.
So it's basically a giant game of Risk, but with real countries and real people caught in the middle.
Exactly. And the U.S. is actively strengthening those alliances, especially with Japan and the Philippines. One article even mentioned they've secured access to military bases in the north of the Philippines.
Which puts them right near the Bashi Strait, one of those key choke points we talked about. That's sending a pretty clear message, don't you think?
Oh yeah, no misstating that. They're conducting military exercises there, too, even sinking old ships as target practice.
Not exactly subtle.
Nope. And you can bet Beijing is paying close attention. They see the whole First Island Chain idea as a relic of the past, a way to try and block them from what they see as their own backyard.
So we've got this fascinating and kind of scary dynamic where geography and global politics are colliding. China and the U.S. both vying for influence in a region with immense strategic importance. But this isn't just about warships and trade routes, is it? There's a whole other layer of history here that makes this standoff even more complicated. We hear about one China all the time, but to really get this whole Taiwan situation, it sounds like we need to rewind a bit to a time when there were actually two Chinas.
Exactly. Imagine, if you will, China in the late 1940s. Civil war is raging. Communists versus nationalists, each vying for control. This isn't just some history lesson. It's the foundation for everything we see today.
One of our listeners actually sent in this article, and it called it, get this, a civil war that never quite finished.
Yeah, I like that. Very apt. Because in 1949, the communists, led by Mao Zedong, they declare victory, establish the People's Republic of China on the mainland. But the thing is, the nationalists, led by Chiang Kai-shek, they weren't quite ready to give up. So they fled. Any guesses?
I'm going to go out on a limb and say, Taiwan.
Bingo. And just like that, you have two governments, both claiming to be the rightful government of all of China. Talk about a recipe for tension.
And that tension has kind of been simmering ever since, right?
Oh, absolutely. See, for Beijing, Taiwan isn't some separate country. No, it's a breakaway province, a piece of the puzzle that they believe needs to be put back where it belongs.
Which is where the U.S. comes in, trying to walk this diplomatic tightrope, acknowledging China's stance while also, well, supporting Taiwan.
It's a very delicate dance. It's what's known as the One China policy. Basically, the U.S. officially acknowledges Beijing's view there's only one China, so no formal recognition of Taiwan as an independent country. But here's the catch. They also maintain these really strong unofficial ties with Taiwan. including providing them with military support. Strategic ambiguity, they call it.
Strategic ambiguity. Okay, so translating from diplomat speak, what does that actually mean?
It means the U.S. is being deliberately vague about how they'd respond if China, say, decided to take Taiwan by force. The idea is to make Beijing think twice without actually making a promise to intervene militarily. Because that could make things even worse.
So it's like a high-stakes poker game where no one wants to tip their hand?
Yeah.
Which honestly sounds terrifying.
Oh, the stakes are astronomical. And yeah, the possibility of someone misinterpreting a move, absolutely a concern. It's crucial to remember, though, that Taiwan is not just a pawn in this game. For the past 75 years, they've been busy building a vibrant, independent society.
And it's a society that looks very, very different from life on the mainland.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in the weeds with the military stuff and all the historical back and forth. But you're so right. It's the people in Taiwan we're really talking about. And from what I'm reading, they've really built something special over there.
They really have. It's quite a journey, actually, from authoritarian rule to a society that consistently ranks incredibly high in terms of freedom of speech, political rights, you name it.
I read one article that mentioned they were actually the first in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage.
Exactly. It speaks volumes, doesn't it? A commitment to those kinds of progressive values. And it plays into the larger picture, too, because this isn't just two different political systems facing off. It's two different visions of what a modern Chinese society could actually look like.
And then you add in the economic dimension. Taiwan's role as this tech powerhouse, specifically when it comes to something called semiconductors. Now, I'll be honest, before this deep dive, I'm not sure I could have told you what a semiconductor even was. They're easy to overlook because most people don't really think about them. But basically, they're these tiny little chips that are in practically every electronic device we use.
Okay.
Your phone, our recording equipment here, even really advanced weaponry, all of it relies on these things.
So help me connect the dots here. What makes Taiwan so important in this whole semiconductor world?
They've basically become the global leader in producing the most advanced semiconductors on the planet, and it's largely thanks to this one company, TSMC. We're talking a ridiculous market share, something like 90% for the most cutting-edge chips.
90%? Hold on, so both China and the U.S. are basically relying on Taiwan for the brains of their most important tech.
That's huge.
That suddenly makes this whole thing feel a lot more real.
It does, and it creates this really fascinating economic interdependence, because even if we set aside the military tensions for a second, just try to imagine how you'd even begin to untangle those supply chains. It's incredibly difficult.
Which makes China's goal of bringing Taiwan back into the fold even more significant, especially when you consider what we've read about Xi Jinping. It seems like for him, this isn't just about territory. It's about legacy, righting historical wrongs, all of that.
It's all connected. Xi Jinping's National Rejuvenation Project aims to restore China to what he believes is its rightful place as a global superpower. And for him, reunification with Taiwan, that's a non-negotiable part of achieving that goal.
It's a lot to wrap your head around. You've got these clashing ambitions, economic anxieties, historical baggage, all swirling around this one island. It's a lot. I mean, for our listener who might be thinking, okay, this is all fascinating, but it's happening on the other side of the world. Why should they care? What's the takeaway?
Because what happens in Taiwan, it doesn't stay in Taiwan. It really does have global implications. It's like a microcosm of these larger challenges that democracies are grappling with all over the world. It's about self-determination, the balance of global power, and like we've been talking about, even the technology that powers our daily lives.
It's a good reminder that we're all far more interconnected than we often realize. And that's what makes these deep dives so crucial. This time, we've journeyed through history, geography, economics, even the very personal human stories at the heart of this issue. And we've seen how this seemingly small island has become the focal point of this global power struggle, one that honestly has no easy answers. But as you continue to explore this issue, here's a final thought to ponder. What if the U.S. and China aren't the only options? Could there be a third path forward? One where Taiwan's own voice and aspirations, those are the things that ultimately determine its fate. Something to think about. Until next time.